Lanterns on Maple Street, using appreciation and gratitude to soften resistance. The first snow of the season had started as a dusting and turned by noon into the kind of slow-falling white that made the whole town look forgiven. Emery Cole watched it through the front window of Cole's Hardware, hands wrapped around a paper cup of lukewarm coffee, and tried not to think about the envelope sitting on the counter behind him. Past due was printed in red across the top. The letters looked louder than they should have. The bell over the door jingled, and old Mr. Pritchard shuffled in with a bucket and a sheepish smile. "Morning, Em," he said, voice thin but friendly. "I need salt for my steps before I bust my tail." Emery nodded and went to the aisle without saying much. He loved this part of town life, the same faces, the same small needs, the way people trusted that you'd have what they needed because you always had. But lately his thoughts kept slipping to what he didn't have. Enough money, enough time, enough margin. Mr. Pritchard talked about the weather, about his grandkid coming in for the weekend, about the good old days when snow was snow and not some weird slush that couldn't make up its mind. Emery laughed politely, rang him up, and handed him his change. "Hang in there," Mr. Pritchard said, as if he could see the envelope from across the counter. "You're good for this town." The bell jingled again as he left, and Emery's smile dropped like a curtain. He looked down at his coffee, took a sip, and made a face. Cold and bitter. Perfect. By mid-afternoon, the snow had stacked itself on the sidewalks in soft layers, and Emery had only sold a few things: salt, a pack of screws, a pair of gloves, a single red shovel that leaned by the register like it was waiting to be chosen. Every lull brought the envelope back into his mind. His phone buzzed with a text from his sister, Danny. It was just a picture. Her kid, Milo, holding up a crooked paper snowman, glitter everywhere, mouth wide in a grin so big it didn't seem possible for a face that small. Emery stared at it longer than he meant to. A warmth stirred in his chest, quick and bright, and then his mind did what it always did lately, swung back. Danny lived 2 towns over because she could afford to. He stayed because he had the store, the building, the responsibility, the weight. The warmth shrank. His shoulders tightened again, almost by habit. When the doorbell jingled this time, it was Ruth Ellison from the library, her scarf wrapped high and her cheeks pink from the cold. Ruth was the kind of person who moved through town like she belonged to every streetlight and bench. She knew people's names, their kids' names, and what kind of books they secretly loved. "Emery," she said, glancing around the quiet store. "Got a minute?" He almost said no, because no felt like the only thing he could afford these days. Instead, he shrugged. "Sure, is." Ruth stepped closer to the counter and lowered her voice like they were sharing a secret in a church. "I'm organizing the Winter Lantern Walk," she said. "The first one we've tried." Emery blinked. "Lantern Walk? We'll have folks make lanterns, line Maple Street, walk from the library to the square. Hot cocoa, carols, maybe a little market." She smiled. "Small town magic, you know." Emery's stomach pinched. All he could see were costs. Permits, supplies, time, people asking for donations, when he was staring down a red-stamped envelope. "I don't know if I can help," he said quickly. "I've got stuff." Ruth studied him for a beat. "Do you want to tell me the stuff?" she asked gently. "Or do you want to keep wrestling it alone?" The words hit a sore spot he didn't know he had. He glanced toward the back counter where the envelopes sat, and he felt something sharp rise: pride, fear, stubbornness, all tangled together. "I'm fine," he said, too flat. Ruth didn't argue. She only nodded like she'd expected that answer and placed a small notepad on the counter. On the cover, in neat handwriting, it said, "The OK List." Emery frowned. "What's this?" "It's a way to loosen the grip," Ruth said. "You know how people hold tight to what scares them, and it just makes everything harder?" She lifted her shoulders. "This helps you let go." Emery let out a short laugh. "A notebook helps me pay bills?" Ruth smiled, not offended, just steady. "A notebook helps you stop strangling your own mind," she said quietly. "And when your mind isn't strangled, you notice solutions you couldn't see before." He wanted to roll his eyes, but something in her tone made him pause. Not because it sounded mystical, because it sounded practical. Ruth slid the notepad a little closer. "Tonight," she said, "write 3 things that are okay, even if they aren't perfect. Then write 3 things you appreciate. Small stuff counts." Emery stared at the cover again. "The OK List. And the lantern walk?" he asked, trying to pivot back to something solid. Ruth's grin returned. "I'm not asking you to fund it," she said. "I'm asking you to be part of it. If you want," she tapped the shovel by the register. "Maybe donate a few cheap supplies. Or just show up." When she left, the bell jingled like nothing had happened. But something had. Emery picked up the notepad and turned it over in his hands, like it might reveal some trick if he looked at it from the right angle. That night, he took the envelope home and set it on the kitchen table with a sigh that felt older than he was. His apartment sat over the store, and the windows looked out on Maple Street, where the snow made everything quiet and kind of holy. He heated canned soup, ate it standing up, and tried not to think about the same looping questions. How did it get this tight? What if the store fails? Is less than #0. 2# is greater than what if I can't fix it? He caught himself mid-spiral. Ruth's words floated back. "Stop strangling your own mind." With a half-annoyed grunt, he opened the notepad, blank page. He stared like the emptiness was accusing him. "Fine," he muttered, and wrote, slowly. "It's okay that I'm scared. It's okay that I don't have the answer tonight. It's okay that the snow is quiet, and the world isn't demanding anything from me right now." He paused and noticed something surprising. His chest didn't feel as tight. Not open, exactly, but less clenched. Then he wrote appreciation, because Ruth said to, "I appreciate that Danny texted me Milo's picture. I appreciate the smell of the snow coming through the cracked window. I appreciate Mr. Pritchard's 'hang in there,' even if it made me want to cry." When he set the pen down, the kitchen felt the same, but he didn't. Not magically fixed, just softened. He slept that night without the usual fist in his stomach. The next morning, he unlocked the store and found a folded flyer under the door. Winter Lantern Walk Community Night. There was a hand-drawn lantern in the corner, a little crooked, like Milo might have drawn it. A strange thought popped into Emery's mind, light as breath. It could be good for business. Then another thought tried to shove it away. Or it could be one more thing that drains me. He caught the shove. He stood still behind the counter, closed his eyes for half a second, and whispered, "That's okay," and flew, just like the list. The fear didn't vanish, but it stopped lunging. And in that little space, he noticed something else. The flyer didn't ask for money. It asked for hands. Around lunchtime, a couple of high school kids came in, cheeks red from the cold, asking for cheap mason jars and tea lights. "Lantern project," one of them said. "We're making like 20. Emery raised his eyebrows. 20? Coach said the whole team's doing it. The other kid said, grin wide, "Town's doing a thing. Town's doing a thing." The phrase landed in Emery's mind like a warm pebble. He sold them jars and tea lights, then found himself pointing to a shelf of coloured twine and cheap ribbon. "Those were great for handles," he said, surprising himself with how natural it felt. "And if you want, I've got some clearance paint pens." The kids bought more than they planned. When they left, the bell jingled and Emery realised he'd been smiling. Actually smiling. Later, when the store quieted again, the envelope tried to crawl back into his thoughts. He felt his shoulders tighten, and he caught it quicker this time. He pulled out Ruth's notepad and wrote right there behind the counter, "It's okay that this bill exists. It's okay that I'm learning how to handle my mind. It's okay that help can show up in ways I don't expect." Then, 3 appreciations. I appreciate the sound of the bell when people walk in. I appreciate that the kids bought supplies and looked excited about it. I appreciate that I can feel a little relief right now, even with the bill still here. The relief didn't erase the problem, but it changed Emery's posture in the problem. That evening, Ruth stopped by again, snowflakes clinging to her scarf like tiny stars. "How's the list?" she asked, nodding at the notepad. Emery hesitated, then let out a breath that felt like honesty. "I hate that it works," he admitted. "But it kind of works." Ruth's laugh was soft and pleased. "Good," she said. "Keep going." "And Em?" She tilted her head. "Would you consider hosting a lantern supply corner in your front window? People can see what they need, grab it quick." Emery's first reaction was the old reflex pressure. Responsibility, more work. He felt it rise like a wave. And then, because he'd practiced twice already today, he didn't grab the wave like it was a rock in a river. He let it pass. "That's okay," he whispered, not out loud, but inside. "It's okay that I feel pressure. It's okay that I'm learning." He looked at Ruth and said, "Yeah, I can do that." 2 days before the walk, Emery set up a table by the front window with jars, tea lights, twine, tissue paper, and markers. He wrote a sign in thick black letters, "Lantern Starter Kits Pay. What you can." When he taped it up, he half expected shame to flare up in him, like he was admitting he needed help, like he was begging. Instead, something else appeared. A quiet pride. People came in all day. Some bought full kits and left extra cash in the jar without making a big deal of it. Some bought one item because that was all they could manage. Some just smiled and said, "This is nice," like they were grateful the town still knew how to gather. Emery kept writing in the notepad between customers. The list became less like homework and more like a lever he could pull when his mind started to sink. On the morning of the lantern walk, the past due envelope still existed. The red letters didn't magically fade. But Emery noticed something important. He wasn't staring at it with the same fear. He stood at the store window and watched families cross the street to the library, kids holding jars with tissue paper glowing soft inside. And he felt appreciation rise, not forced, not performed, just real. He whispered to himself, "I appreciate this town." Then, like he'd learned, he milked the feeling for a moment longer. The glow in his chest spread. The tightness loosened. That evening, Maple Street filled with light. Lanterns lined the sidewalks, some fancy, some messy, some held together with tape and hope. Kids ran ahead, laughter bouncing off the storefronts. Older couples walked slower, hands tucked into each other's pockets like they'd been doing it for decades. Emery stood outside Cole's Hardware with a tray of paper cups of cocoa he'd made in the back room, and he watched the line of lanterns flow toward the square. Ruth appeared beside him, holding a lantern made from a jar wrapped in old book pages. "See?" she said, eyes bright. "Magic." Emery nodded, but his mind was doing something else. It was noticing details it would have missed a week ago. The way people lingered at his window display. The way the pay-what-you-can sign made folks smile instead of cringe. The way the town's energy felt up. And then, right in the middle of all that light, an idea slid into his mind like it had been waiting for the door to open. Not a desperate idea, not a panicked one. A clean, simple thought that felt good. What if the store became more than a place to buy things? What if it became a place to start things? Workshops, tool sharing, a community board for small projects, seasonal kits like the lanterns, garden starters, porch repair packs, new apartment basics. Emery felt a grin spread across his face, and it wasn't a grin that begged life to cooperate. It was a grin that expected life to cooperate. He turned to Ruth, voice low, like he was afraid the idea might spook if he spoke too loud. "I think I know what to do," he said. Ruth didn't demand details. She just nodded like she trusted the way the river moved when you stopped grabbing rocks. "Good," she said. "That's how it comes." Later, after the lanterns burned down and the last song faded, Emery went upstairs and sat at his kitchen table with the notepad and the envelope side by side. He didn't pretend the bill wasn't real. He didn't try to shove fear away with fake cheer. He did something steadier. He wrote, "It's okay that I still have work to do. It's okay that I'm not alone in this town, even when I forget that. It's okay that relief can exist before the solution is finished." Then he wrote what he appreciated, and he let himself feel it not rush through it. I appreciate the lanterns on Maple Street. I appreciate Ruth's quiet way of helping without pushing. I appreciate that my mind can learn new habits and I can feel better on purpose. He set the pen down and looked at the envelope again. This time, it didn't look like a verdict. It looked like information. He opened it, read it, and then, with a calm he didn't think he could access a week ago, he made a plan. Not a frantic plan, a step-by-step plan, the kind you could actually follow. When he finally turned off the light, he stood by the window and watched a single leftover lantern glow in the snow outside the library, still burning, stubborn and warm. Emery smiled to himself and whispered, "Thank you." Not because everything was perfect, because everything was moving. And for the first time in a long time, he let that be enough.